welcome to Sunrise Extra on this holiday, Labor Day Monday. There is a lot to talk about actually on this holiday. We've got, some pretty warm weather. We've got some pretty high winds coming later in the day into tonight. And of course, we got lots of folks camping out, barbecuing, trying to make the most of this 3-day weekend. So let's start with Rod. You all morning have been really talking about the winds and some of the numbers, like on the ridge tops up near Mount Hood, very surprising.
Yeah, I just checked. So we don't typically get wind events in the summer. It's still summer.
Right.
And in fact, we haven't even at PDX, we have not seen a wind gust, period, go to 30 miles per hour or higher until you have to back up to the month of May. So isn't that amazing? We haven't even seen a 30 mile per hour peak wind gust in August. Never did. July never did. June never did. So it's been a while since we've seen the winds blow. Hey, behind me, we're going to go ahead and show you the weather maps. But this is one of our 2 Timberline Lodge cameras. And part of the story with the wind today is the fire danger. You can see clearly that smoke plume. This would be on the east side of Mount Jefferson. That's in part the White River fire. And there are other fires burning in Central Oregon on the east flanks of the Cascades. And I made the comment on Sunrise this morning, and I think it's just a fair comment to say that today is the highest fire danger overall for our state as a whole, Oregon and up into Washington, that we've seen at any point during this summer season. We have still temperatures here on the west side of the state. They'll be around 90 today. We have the east winds setting up. East winds bring the lowest humidity levels that we see from any wind direction. That means the driest air mass, and that just heightens fire danger. The area, so that's the red area, the fire weather warning, which includes just about everybody. Now the wind warning, it does not include Salem. It does not include Yamhill County, where we think east winds will be more gusting into the 30s and not really higher than that. But everybody in that tan or kind of sand-colored area, which includes Multnomah County, out into Washington County, up into the Coast Range and the flanks of Mount Hood, under this high wind warning. Now we're calm right now, and the winds may not be that bad through even 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon, so really not a bad Labor Day. The high wind warning starts at 5, but we do think once we get into mid-evening especially, these winds will very rapidly pick up. So all of us tonight here in the North Valley should expect to hear the winds blowing outside tonight, 35 to 45 miles per hour. I think that's a pretty good bet. And that wouldn't be that big a deal, but there will be some spotty areas where winds, especially near the gorge, could spike between 50 and 60 miles per hour. Now you're getting into big-time heightened chance of power outages, big-time heightened chance of trees coming down. And, Nina, you mentioned how windy it's going to be, especially at elevation. So one forecast model at 11 p.m. tonight shows a 54 mile per hour east wind gust at 1,000 feet. Hello, Mount Scott.
Yeah.
5,000 foot level above Government Camp at 2 a.m., east winds to 63, and some of the peaks over the Cascades expecting to see 75 mile per hour winds. Man. So the forecast models are taking this east wind, and when you get up in elevation, they're just showing this east wind is blowing and blowing and blowing, a pretty constant feel. Like yeah. And then when you get down low into the valley, it becomes more spotty, and we're going to have the wind shooting through the gorge and Cascade foothills, sandy. Probably a much better bet of seeing real wind issues than, say, out in Washington County. But still possible that Washington County has some wind issues tone. You like that blowing. I
like when you get the wide stance, Yeah. I can tell something's coming.
That's a new meaning to active forecast. What stood out to me there, and that's a lot of information you just passed along, a lot of good information, but that thing you mentioned about the 1,000-foot mark, because you are talking about some parts of Portland proper at that point still, Mount Scott area being one. Yeah. Wind gusts tonight of how much, did you say, at 1,000 feet?
Well, when you reach 1,000 feet, the chance heightens of seeing a 50 mile per hour plus wind gust. And then by the time you get up into real elevation in the mountains themselves, now your chance heightens of seeing a 60 mile per hour wind gust. It's going to be interesting to see. I know you guys are going to be talking more about this, and I'll let you guys talk about it, but it's going to be more interesting to see if PGE does decide to cut the power in some of those Cascade areas. Yeah.
I'm curious because we have a lot of people watching.
And remember...
Go ahead, Rod. Finish that up. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, remember, if they do decide to cut the power, one thing that people don't realize, and when this happened in California some time back, there were a lot of citizens that were complaining, But once they make the decision to cut the power, and they would do so because they're afraid that the winds will knock trees into power lines, or power lines simply swaying could spark a fire.
Right.
But if they make the decision to cut it, they actually have to send manual crews out the next day to get on the ground and check all those lines and make sure everything is fine.
Before they
and that
restart.
takes a bit of time.
Sure.
So then it becomes kind of an unknown as to when the power would get safely turned back on. I'll let you guys talk now.
But it tells you that it's a serious deal. They don't take it lightly. If they're going to do it, they know that it involves a lot of work and a lot of follow-up work in the days to come. So again, the fact that they're doing it, we already know it's a big deal because it's never been done here before.
Yeah, it would be the first time ever. So what we're talking about, it was our bigger headline today. It could be 5,000 homes in the Mount Hood area that they would, for the first time ever in PGE history, do an intentional blackout and shut off that power again because of the trees that could. I mean, we hear about it happening, all the time in California. With PG and E crews down there doing that, but boy, I mean, it's never happened here. That would be wild.
And we should point out again the key word probably at this point being could. It has not been decided yet. PGE says it's going to kind of wait and monitor the weather situation today and see how it develops, but not a promising forecast in terms of wind, to say the least. And this is a holiday, for goodness sakes. It's Labor Day, and yet we have a lot of people watching right now. And part of my thinking, Rod, is that people may have seen the Facebook post because we have a lot of people watching specifically on our Facebook page right now. Matt Zaffino put out a Facebook post at about 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if you saw that or not, Rod. My wife, I woke up this morning at like 1:30, a little bit earlier than normal. And my wife was up like reading her phone. I'm like, what are you doing?
She was.
Yeah, and she goes, oh, I couldn't sleep. And she goes, I'm looking. And she starts telling me all the details of this windstorm that's coming. And she was basically reading it right off of Matt's Facebook post. So I think if people see that, he did put a little fear into people with that post, and now they're probably following up this morning to see what you have to say about it.
And Rod, you've been saying like literally get your lawn furniture and any umbrellas you have. I mean, I live on the east side and it is already very windy when a lot of other people on days don't have wind, and so you're literally saying like batten down the hatches if you have outdoor stuff that could blow around.
Yeah. Jeff Miller tuning in, and Jeff says,
oh, I wouldn't read
I'm
that
shaming the meteorologists of KGW because they are shaming real meteorologists. I would ask Jeff to expand on that.
No,
I
don't
won't read
ask him
what
to
he
expand
says,
on
but
that.
I'd be curious to see what
a lot of people though asking what time this is really
all right.
supposed to kick in though. What times are you kind of zeroing in, because this is like a later in the day thing, right?
Yeah, so the National Weather Service has the warning starting at 5 p.m. and then extending and expiring at 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. Now, it's very common with east wind events that the strongest of the wind isn't during the daytime, it's during the overnight into that following early sunrise hour. So that would make you think, well, okay, once we get past midnight tonight through about 6 or 7 tomorrow morning, that could be the biggest bullseyes. And most of our forecast models, if you look at the hour-to-hour output, they typically start taking off at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock tonight in terms of getting into their bullseye of those, especially up in elevation, 50, 60 mile per hour wind spikes.
Another headline today is they're literally warning people, if you have friends or family out camping right now, to maybe think about, getting on the road much earlier today so you're not, maybe stuck on some of these forest roads or deep in these campgrounds when fire danger is the highest later on, and just for traffic, to get emergency vehicles in and around Highway 26. We saw this crazy headline today of 200 campers down by Yosemite National Park in California had to literally be airlifted out because their only way into that campground was shut off by a major wildfire. So scary stuff.
Mindy is chiming in, one of our regulars on the Sunrise Extra feed, Rod. And Mindy says, I don't know where exactly Mindy lives, but somewhere in the Eagle Creek area, because she says after living through the Eagle Creek fire evacuations, I'm happy that people are thinking ahead, like PGE, for example. She says fires coming toward you that fast are absolutely scary. She says we're ready just in case. In fact, she says she plans to tell people at work that she may lose access to power because she is still working from home. Rod, you mentioned Jeff Miller earlier. I was going to tell you don't even bother going there because you've had many viewers come to your defense already and tell Jeff to keep his mouth shut, keep his trap quiet. Andrea Gale, the latest, saying Jeff is a troll. Anyways, Nina brought up the fact that some of the heavily forested areas, and I'm thinking Sun River, Lapine, those areas. You said maybe they're not going to be as affected by this wind event as we are here to the north, correct?
Well, I mean, this is an east wind event, so it's going to hit the Cascades, and then the wind will pick up speeds actually coming down the west side of the Cascades. But if we can go ahead and put up the map again, our director, you can see that the wind warning is the sandy kind of tan areas. So again, this includes Portland, Multnomah County, coming out of the West Gorge, Washington County, Tillamook County, the North Coast, up into Astoria. That's primarily for the Coast Range, but it does not include Salem. It does include the west flank of the Cascades all the way down through south of Jefferson. So now you are getting down to the Detroit Lake area, for example. But
and there's a fire
not
already
I-5
burning
and then
there.
off to the west once you get that far south.
Michelle Barber wanting to
Now
know.
again, the red.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say the red, which basically includes everything you see on this map. That is the fire weather warning for extremely high fire danger today. Go ahead, Nina.
And somebody was asking about Longview, but looking at your map there, it's kind of just right in that little zone where it may not be bad.
Yeah, Kelso, Longview area. In fact, you're expecting north winds 5 to 15, maybe some gusts tonight to about 25 miles per hour. So again, Cowlitz County not in the warning area, but Clark County is.
You know, Rod, a lot of people are tuning in right now, and I just saw one viewer just say, hey, what the heck is going on? Just saw the live feed. And perhaps if you're not familiar with Sunrise Extra and you jump onto our Facebook page, you're like thinking, is there a weather event happening right now? So for starters, we do this every morning, Monday through Friday, after our Sunrise TV show. We call it Sunrise Extra. Today's topic happens to be the topic of the day, which is weather. And I don't know if we talked much about this. I don't think we saw this coming to this extent at the end of last week, Rob, but what we're calling a major wind event in the area, and really the way we phrased it earlier, and you can either back this up or put your own spin on it, but a wind event like we don't normally see this time of the year in this part of the state.
No, we don't. These east wind events are typically, driven by cold air that's settling over eastern Oregon and eastern Washington in the winter months. And that's what sets up and drives a typical east wind event. This one's actually being fueled by the opposite, this hot weather that's been coming up from Arizona and Utah and Nevada. And it's setting up a little hot weather, kind of a thermal trough, we call it, over the Coast Range. And that's going to ignite a pressure gradient that's going to pull these east winds over the Cascades down into the valley. I do want to be clear, though, our worst, I think it's fair, our worst fear weather-wise is when we get those big, strong Pacific lows and they come up the heart of the Willamette Valley from Northern California. That's our classic all-out windstorm. Okay. So that is a different animal than this, which is a good old-fashioned, strong east wind event. Now, the good news with east wind events is they typically hit areas where the trees have been somewhat pruned from prior east wind events over the years, but still we can have power outages and down trees, and certainly it can be a dangerous situation.
Somebody bringing up a great point, Kathy Tompkins. A lot of schools are supposed to start online Tuesday. Hope we have power.
Yes.
I
thought the same thing earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine if the school districts put out a note today saying, hey, we're going to have to delay the start of school by a day? Are you
Would
kidding
anyone
me?
be surprised
No.
at this point, right? Elisa Gardner saying she's going from Southern Oregon to Estacada with a travel trailer. What time should we plan to leave and be home? I would say go early, Elisa, especially, with a high profile vehicle like that. If you're going to be, Southern Oregon should be in the clear, but as you get up closer to the valley, it's just probably safer to go a little earlier. Tony Humble, how will air quality be,
I want to be home
in the
by
metro?
4.
Smelling smoke the last few days. We just came over from Bend last night, and boy, late yesterday afternoon, it was rolling into town pretty thick.
It's a mixed bag on the air quality this morning between moderate and what's considered good air quality. On the one hand, the wind's blowing improves the air quality, but remember, those east winds will bring wildfire haze back into our skies. So you would assume that tomorrow, for example, is going to be the haziest day that we've had so far, and there is the risk that we could see deteriorating air quality here in the valley as well. I've not seen any warnings for that, but certainly we could get into the moderate range at some point tonight.
I wanted to share a comment from one of our faithful viewers, Connie. Now I've lost it, but I believe Connie was asking about Salem. She says Salem is going to be spared, right, Rod? And also where she lives in Silverton. Do you want to give us another update on the Salem-Silverton area?
Yeah, so you're looking at east. I mean, you're going to notice the winds blowing. Your forecast for Marion County is east winds gusting up to about 35 miles per hour tonight. That's below warning criteria, and the main reason for that is you're not going to have the possibility of those spike areas of 50, 60 miles per hour that we get here in the North Valley because of our proximity to the Columbia River Gorge. But still 35 miles per hour, I would set the trash can in, so to speak, right? Well, don't put it inside. That can be smelly. Maybe put it up against the house.
Or something, yeah.
We have a viewer named Georgia. I believe it's Georgia. And Georgia says, I've always been surprised why you guys don't mention the fact that this is a windstorm that just wiped out Japan, and that's why we get it. It takes a few days, but then it comes over here. I think you should explain that to people. And I'm thinking, that's not accurate. That's not true. Right, Rod?
No, this is, for that to be true, we basically would have to have a low pressure center with some tropical moisture that was moving in and fueling this. Now this is, again, as I mentioned earlier in the show, it's an east wind event that's set up by a thermal trough line that's setting up over the Coast Range during the day today, and that simply sets up a gradient that pulls the east winds over the Cascades into the valley. So the setup is kind of classic for us. What's unusual is the time of the year,
right,
which Drew mentioned. Really unusual this time of the year. Go ahead, Nina.
I have a 101 weather question for you, Rod, because I always forget the answer to this. When you say an east wind, does that mean it's coming from the east or it's blowing to the east?
Yeah, so the wind direction is the source direction that the wind is coming from.
The source, so it's blowing from the east.
You know, if I'm standing outside and I'm looking at a beautiful sunset to the west and I feel the wind hitting me in the back, that's an east wind, right?
Yes.
So it's talking about the source. Gotcha. I always forget
feel the east wind, but it would be hitting me in the face.
Right.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Yeah.
If you're standing in the city and you're looking at Mount Hood and the wind hits you in the face, it's an east wind.
Joanne Hudson says, I just tuned in. I live in Sandy.
Yes.
She lives in Sandy. She wonders how hard they will be hit. That's kind of right in the sweet spot, right? Sandy up near Mount Hood. Again, if you're just tuning in with us, PGE, Portland General Electric, warning they could shut down power to 5,000 homes in the Mount Hood area because they're worried trees could topple on power lines and cause a fire. It's never been done before. But, okay, go ahead. Personalized forecast for Sandy, Rod.
Well, in Sandy, of course, up in elevation, 1,000 feet. Also, you're on the flank of the Cascades with that wind coming down into you. So you're absolutely in a heightened bullseye area for the potential. Some 50, 55 mile per hour wind gusts tonight, maybe slightly higher, but certainly I would expect the winds to be at least 45, if not 55 tonight. That's in Sandy. Yeah.
It's funny, I have a comment here in front of me from Karen, C-A-R-Y-N. Karen saying, if the one guy would show the map, that would be great. Now listen, I don't know if she's talking about Rod, but the guy who really makes that map pop is Director Brian. Brian just made that map pop.
That guy.
She's talking about you, Director Brian. That guy, if he would just show the map, that would be great.
Yeah.
There's your map,
I would
Karen.
say I get it when you just tune in. When you tune in and you're not getting what you want to see, I get where that's frustrating. The fact is, though, we have been showing it on and off.
Yes.
Just so you know, we've got it up again for you right now. And again, it's that sandy kind of tan area that shows the high wind warning. Everything else, the red, is the high fire danger. But you can see that the map takes the wind from the gorge through Portland out through Washington County. The high wind warning does not include Salem, and also does not include most of Yamhill County. McMinnville, good morning. You are not in the high wind warning. Now, if you're not in the high wind warning, that simply means your east winds tonight are likely not going to hit 40 miles per hour. But you are going to hear the trees rustling because your winds will be noticeably breezy to gusty today.
You just got to think of like the people at the campsites, you know, you don't know anything that's going on. You're tuned out. It's a holiday weekend. You're in a tent or an RV or something. You don't know what we're talking about. So I wonder, you know, if there's like any campground hosts or that kind of go around and be like, guys, may want to get on the road a little sooner, because how would you know?
It's just funny because now, Rod, all the stream is doing is it's becoming a personal, hey, Rod, can you give me a forecast for my street?
It usually does,
yeah. You know, hey, Drew, can I mention that we have this map posted on my KGW Rod Hill Facebook page. I know that for a fact. And basically at some point you just have to look at the map and know what county you're in and kind of point to where your city would be. We just got one for Oregon City. So Oregon City, of course, you find 205, and you get down in Clackamas County and you realize that, Oregon City's in that high wind warning. And that means you could see a 50-mile-per-hour wind gust tonight. You should expect at least 35 to 45-mile-per-hour wind gusts tonight. Yeah.
We have a viewer named Debbie Dew watching right now on Facebook. And if your last name involves some sort of weather term like dew, you get called out today on Sunrise Extra. So Debbie Dew says, personal wind weather report for Oregon City, Rod. Specifically the 200 block of Main Street in Oregon City. No, but she just says Oregon City, Debbie Dew. Do you have a forecast for Debbie Dew?
Yeah, we just did that. we just that was what I said the last time I spoke. Oregon City.
Yeah, he did just
we literally just said that.
Gotta listen, people.
But did you talk it? Did you say Debbie Dew specifically? Did you call her out by name, Rod? Give Debbie Dew some love.
Oh, I didn't. I didn't.
Oh, this is pretty good, Rod. What the heck? I don't know anything about that. This is a little off base, but we heard an explosion over here on the east side. Anything to report? We have not heard about that explosion either. Or either. So we will follow up on that. Tony Humble asking about an explosion that he heard over on the east side this morning.
Just checking emails. Nothing yet.
Another viewer whose name I'm not going to even try to go down the road and try to pronounce that, but says, is it a good, safe day to pick apples at the Mount Hood Loop?
Very specific, people.
This is good. This is getting good.
Dun, da, da. Well, I would just be home by, I would be home by 4. I mean, it's going to be pretty nice everywhere this morning. Winds will start to pick up, east winds this afternoon. Again, the warning doesn't start until 5. And we really look for the winds to start to get out of hand at some point mid-evening on, so 7, 8 o'clock on. So really, just, go have a great Labor Day and doing, whatever you can do to stay safe, of course. But probably best to be home by 4, give yourself a little leadway in case you do run into some traffic and that sort of thing.
Sure. I think it's a lot of people, like driving RVs and stuff like that. If you've got a lot of stuff, bikes and all kinds of stuff that you're hauling back. Just leave a little bit earlier. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, Nina, let me be serious for a second, because this always hits me, and it hits me because I have a personal connection. But several times since I've lived here, we've had people die driving into the Coast Range, specifically Highway 26 and the Wilson River Highway, during these wind events where the big fir trees fall and the timing is exact and the trees actually hit a car driving the speed limit or faster on Highway 26, and the people in that car die at the scene. Yeah. And actually, one of my old neighbors, good friends of theirs, that happened. They were in the car and they died. So my point is, this is not a good night to be driving to the Coast Range, either coming or going, whichever direction. I just think if it's not something you absolutely have to do, I would not be driving in the mountains tonight, Cascades or the Coast Range, period. Just put it off. You're just asking for too much trouble. You're flirting with Mother Nature. And unless there's just something where you have to do that trip, I would put it off. Yeah. Just wait till this wind event blows through.
I think that's a great point, Rod.
You can make that drive tomorrow afternoon.
And we spent how many months this year not going anywhere, right? So let's not make tonight the night we decide to go somewhere. I think those are some great words of wisdom, Rod, to wrap up this edition of Sunrise Extra with. So we say, hey, stay tuned to KHW.com and our news app for the latest info on this windy weather event that's coming our way on this Labor Day Monday. Thanks for watching us here on Sunrise Extra.